Selected British chicken farmers rear the birds to Heinz high standards. 1 million birds a year. The chickens are packed 10 or 12 to a 40-pound case. And just think of it, 100,000 of these cases of chickens go into Heinz Chicken Soup every year. Another example from Britain, the carrot. This is a farm in Norfolk run by a man who has been supplying Heinz for many years. Heinz have a specification for carrots, as they have for all other raw materials they use. This conveyor is taking carrots to the machine that will grade them into 3 sizes after the imperfect ones have been picked out by hand and rejected. The smallest grade will be sold to firms which can them home. The medium-sized ones will go to the market and onto the greengrocers' shops. And the biggest and best of all will go to Heinz. Here are Heinz-sized carrots. They've got to be diced for use in vegetable soups and other products, and the bigger and stubbier they are, the more economically it can be done. So here's the minimum specification. 4 inches long and 2 inches across the top. Crisp, succulent, and full of flavour, and red right through. That man in glasses is an expert from Heinz Contract Crop Department, off with the farmer now to meet one of the biggest carrot seed authorities in Britain. He's arranged a conference between them to discuss the farmer's problem. Not round a table or by letter, but where the carrots grow. This farm has a contract for 2,000 tons a year. A lot of carrots, but a drop in the Heinz Ocean in statistical fact. Heinz started contract buying in place of market buying before the war because it gives them what they need. Quality control all along the line. Cooperation with the seedsmen and the growers and the fertilizer firms. Control over the final product. There they are. Not a split or deformed one amongst them. And you can be sure, no tough or woody ones, or someone will want to know the reason. Control, cooperation, every step of the way. Some of the specifications are highly technical, a matter for the organic chemist. He can phone the expert and tell him that a consignment of carrots is not passing the stringent tests. And the substandard carrots have to be taken away. The standards are high and Heinz stick to them scrupulously. That's understood and accepted on all sides. Each of the 3 Heinz factories has its quality control laboratory. Take a look at this chap, one of a detective squad. Slight imperfections that shouldn't be there, and steps will be taken halfway round the world to put things right. Or someone will lose his Heinz contract. The other Heinz laboratory is the Analytical Methods Development Section. They do nothing else but think up new methods for the three factories and their labs to use. For example, those rigid specifications. Size and shape can be measured, but how do you specify flavour? Up to now, by human judgment, but that's something scientists don't trust. So they're trying out ways of measuring flavour so that this part of each specification can be as foolproof as the rest. It may take a year or two, but they're on the track. Already, they can measure colour. They examine every bean that Heinz bake with this incredible machine. 1 million beans a minute are individually examined, and they're examined all round by photoelectric cells in these panels. If they're the wrong colour, they're rejected, and no right of appeal. Only the perfect ones end up in a can. How many beans make 5? 2 in each hand and 1 in your hat. How many beans make 1 million cans a day? Quite a few, and they all have to come from somewhere. Heinz beans come from the United States, Chile, and Europe. Let's take a flying trip across the Atlantic to Michigan, one of the principal suppliers of the beans which go into the famous blue cans. Baked beans are, very rightly, #1 of the 57 varieties. The Heinz organization was built on a foundation of baked beans because, quite frankly, nobody else is tasted like theirs. Even undiscriminating shoppers who accept what they're offered will insist on Heinz when it comes to baked beans. Oddly enough, though they were born in the States, baked beans and bacon is the famous cowboys' breakfast, it's in Britain that their popularity has broken all records and made Heinz baked beans the biggest single-branded product of its kind in the world. So the British Heinz Company take, even by their standards, an extra special interest in the bean and give it a specification as long as your arm. To keep an eye on their contracted Michigan crop, of course, they enlist the cooperation of the American Heinz Company. But that doesn't mean they're any less careful about the crops from Europe or Chile. The standards are the same. But they have to be met, and they are. 462 million beans a day, all reaching the Heinz specification, which is the minimum starting point for quality. Every British docker knows the name Heinz, not merely because his wife buys it like every sensible housewife, but because he's been watching an unending stream of Heinz raw materials coming in all his life, not to mention Heinz finished products going out. You've got cargoes coming in from the West Indies, spices, fruits, a whole range of Caribbean market produce, and it all has to reach the Heinz level of perfection. There's no harm, no danger in the sort of impurity, the unwanted seeds or bits of fluff that so often get mixed up with cloves or cinnamon, but Heinz won't have it. Absolute purity is a must. New Zealand mutton is another major import. 500 tons go into a year's output of Scotch broth alone. And Australian cattle. Heinz get butter from these splendid dairy herds, and 4,000 tons of Australian beef, too, is needed annually for Heinz soups and for their baby foods. But one story is perhaps more exciting than all the others. The story of the Heinz tomato, the key constituent of so many of their most popular products. The tomato is almost the Heinz hallmark. And the tomato story tells how Heinz experts crossed Europe to revolutionize a whole industry. This is tomato soup made from high-quality tomatoes specially grown for Heinz requirements. Heinz used tomatoes for tomato soup, tomato ketchup, the famous sauce for baked beans, and also for spaghetti. Heinz used to get their tomatoes from Canada. But after the war, with all our dollar restrictions, hundreds of thousands of tons had to be obtained in a soft currency area. One sunny tomato-growing country seemed ideal, Italy. Crop, lavish. Quality, improvable but basically sound. Conditions? Well, you have to remember that Italy's mainly peasant economy was struggling to revive after the ravages of war, and its methods weren't exactly up to date. Modern processing of tomato puree is by no means a simple job. Heinz representatives visited some 50 of the major Italian producers, cast a tactful eye over their methods, and even more tactfully, raised the possibility of improving them. In 5 cases out of 6, they were up against a brick wall. But Heinz needed tomatoes in huge quantities, and tomatoes that met their high standards. In the end, they found, out of all the manufacturers in Italy, a handful. To be exact, 19 go-ahead growers who were willing to cooperate and seemed capable of doing so. So a great partnership was born that was to transform an important national industry. The first thing to do was to build the plant for processing the tomatoes. And this had its headaches. But at last it was done, and the most up-to-date equipment was installed. At the same time, the growers adopted the Sistema Heinz, the Heinz system of controlled cultivation, supervised at every stage by highly qualified agricultural experts, producing glorious tomatoes like this. The whole controlled process, from the selection of special seed, dried in the Italian sunshine, is one of accepting or rejecting. At every stage, only the best are taken. Selected seed and then selected seedlings. The rich alluvial soil of the Po Valley, perfect for tomatoes. At every stage, Heinz agricultural experts supervise the great harvesting. The whole harvest is picked in 6 short weeks, a tremendous operation. At a time when the tomatoes are just perfect, they're gathered in from fields that reach to the horizon. The tomatoes are taken to the processing plant within 1 hour of being picked. Tractors, lorries, queue up at the plant and pass the proud notice, "We produce for Heinz." And some of them jump the queue. There were early moments of triumph, small but significant. One was when the other Italian producers, who'd rejected the Heinz overtures, began to see the advantages. The day when the first of them put out feelers to see if he could become number 20. But a Heinz contract was not so easy to come by, and Heinz remained loyal to the 19 who were first to seize such a splendid opportunity. Now we've got this enormous supply ready for processing. No wonder the English and the Italian partners survey the scene with satisfaction. The first of several washings, and the hand-picked tomatoes still face the closest scrutiny. Any that isn't perfect is taken out. The rejected tomatoes disappear down the chute, never to be seen again. Only the perfect ones are used. In the laboratory, chemists make continual tests for perfect and uniform flavour. Some of the huge crop goes to the tomato juice plant. It's fresh canned on the spot with the same perfect care and control that you find in Heinz British factories. Cans of Heinz tomato juice are labelled and packed for the British and overseas markets. The main bulk of the tomatoes is converted into tomato puree, the basic raw material for so many Heinz varieties. Lovely stuff. And just think of it, it takes something like 66 pounds of tomatoes to make enough puree to fill one of these cans. And off they go to the 3 Heinz factories in Britain. And what happens on arrival? Right away, the puree is subjected yet again to the most rigorous quality tests. Quality control is standard procedure for all the 57 Heinz varieties. The world has indeed been put in a can, with scrupulous care and control. And what a skilled, complicated job it is handling so many million cans a day, so many thousand tons of top-quality products. Supplying countless homes in many lands with food that comes from many lands is a tremendous responsibility. To meet it and to maintain the public trust generation after generation, your standards must be almost superhuman. That's why Heinz are proud that people all over the world choose the 57 varieties to bring them the world in a can.